Before you can understand what would happen if Jupiter vanished, you must first understand what it is, because Jupiter is not merely a planet, it's an event that never stopped happening. A silent storm, older than anything with eyes to see it. The largest object in the solar system after the Sun, so large that if it were a hollow sphere, more than 1,300 Earths could fit inside. So heavy that it outweighs every other planet combined twice over. It is, in every practical sense, the system's second sun, a star that almost was. 4.5 billion years ago, when the solar system was still dust and lightning, Jupiter formed first. It gathered the leftovers of creation, vacuuming the chaos around the newborn sun. While other worlds were fragile embryos, Jupiter became a giant of hydrogen and helium, a gaseous echo of the sun itself. Had it been only 80 times more massive, its core would have ignited fusion. The solar system would have been a binary star system, two blazing hearts locked in a gravitational dance, but it stopped short of that threshold, arrested just below the fire. And so it remained what it is today. Not a second star, but a keeper of balance, a dark flame that never lit. Its atmosphere is a planet-sized hurricane. Bands of ochre, copper and cream circle endlessly, like the fingerprints of wind. The Great Red Spot, a storm large enough to swallow the Earth whole, has raged for at least 3 centuries, perhaps longer. If you could stand above those clouds, you cannot. There is no ground. You'd see lightning bolts 1,000 times more powerful than anything on Earth. You'd feel gravity pulling with more than twice the strength we're used to. And somewhere deep below the clouds, hydrogen is crushed into a metallic ocean, electrically conductive, shimmering like liquid steel, generating the planet's enormous magnetic field. This field, invisible but immense, carves a magnetosphere so vast it could swallow the sun itself. If you could see it glowing, Jupiter would no longer look like a planet. It would look like a shield. And in a sense, that's exactly what it is, because every world you know, the pale blue dot of Earth, the dry ochre of Mars, the ice pearls of Europa and Enceladus, exists in the quiet shadow of Jupiter's protection. It sits beyond the asteroid belt, a gravitational sentinel. Its pull keeps billions of rocks and comets in line, bending their chaotic orbits into predictable paths. Without that silent hand, the solar system would be a shooting gallery. Every time you look up at a clear night sky, there is an invisible choreography at play. Planets circling the sun, not randomly but rhythmically, locked into resonances, orbital harmonies tuned by Jupiter's mass. It's the metronome of the solar system. Even Earth's orbit, its seasonal steadiness, owes a debt to that distant giant's subtle tug. Remove it, and everything begins to drift. But that's for later. For now, Jupiter stands. Immense, unblinking, ancient. Scientists once called it a failed star. But perhaps that's the wrong word. Failure implies intention, disappointment. Jupiter didn't fail to become a sun. It succeeded in becoming something more improbable, a world so large it could have burned, but instead chose to hold everything else together. Its gravity sculpts stability. Its existence gives structure to chaos. It is the still point around which the solar system's symphony unfolds. When the Galileo spacecraft fell into its atmosphere in 2003, it was crushed within minutes. No signal escaped, no photograph, just silence. That silence is Jupiter's language. It doesn't shout its importance, it exerts it. Every planet, every comet, every wandering fragment of ice and dust knows the weight of its presence. Even the sun feels its pull, ever so slightly wobbling as Jupiter circles around it. Our star itself dances to Jupiter's rhythm. To understand its dominance, you have to think in gravity, not light. The sun may provide illumination, but Jupiter provides choreography. Gravity is not a visible thing. It's a field of persuasion, an invisible thread that tells everything else where to go. If the sun is the spotlight that lets us see, Jupiter is the invisible stage rigging that keeps the set from collapsing. And yet, despite its enormity, we almost never think about it. Ask someone to picture the solar system, and they'll imagine the sun, the Earth, maybe Mars. Jupiter is a distant rumour, a striped sphere glimpsed in textbooks. But that ignorance is the essence of its power. What keeps us safe is what we forget exists. Jupiter doesn't demand attention, it demands respect. For astronomers, it's a living fossil of the early solar system. Its composition, mostly hydrogen and helium, has changed little since the Sun's birth. Studying it is like looking backward in time, into the conditions that made everything possible. The Juno spacecraft, now orbiting it, measures its gravitational field, mapping currents deep beneath the clouds. Each data point whispers about formation, about motion, about the invisible architecture of planets. Through Juno's instruments, we learn that Jupiter may have a dense core, or perhaps a diffuse one, that it's not static but restless, its interior swirling in colossal storms that take centuries to complete a single cycle. But science alone cannot capture its significance. To truly understand Jupiter, you must feel scale, how it dwarfs the imagination. If Jupiter were a marble, Earth would be a pebble. If Jupiter were a basketball, the Moon would be a grain of sand orbiting near its surface. And if Jupiter were to disappear, the solar system would be a clock whose mainspring had been quietly removed. In myth, Jupiter, or Zeus, was the king of gods, hurling thunderbolts from the heavens. In physics, the planet Jupiter does exactly that. Electric storms, lightning that dwarfs any earthly display, thunder in a world with no ground for it to echo against. It embodies dominion, but also distance. A ruler no one can approach, yet on whom all depend. Look at the night sky through a telescope and you'll see it. A small golden disk, banded, bright, surrounded by 4 dots, its largest moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede and Callisto. They orbit like a miniature solar system caught in perfect resonance. Io erupts with volcanoes, Europa hides an ocean beneath its ice, Ganymede has its own magnetic field, Callisto is ancient and cratered like memory itself. Each moon is a world, yet all are prisoners of Jupiter's gravity, bound by the same force that steadies us. It's an echo of the whole solar system in miniature, the way structure emerges from the pull of something massive, unseen, inevitable. Imagine for a moment that Jupiter did not exist. 4.5 billion years ago, without that gravitational anchor, the solar system's infancy would have been chaos. Planetesimals, those embryonic fragments of rock and ice, would have collided too violently, too often. The inner planets might never have formed stable orbits. Earth might have been hurled into the sun or ejected into the frozen dark. Jupiter didn't just appear within order, it made order possible. It's the reason there was a calm enough space for life to begin. And so the irony, this massive world of storms and pressure and violence, is indirectly the reason for peace. Its chaos creates our stability, its storms guard our calm seas, its gravity prevents our destruction. In the grand story of existence, Jupiter is the paradox of power, ferocious yet protective, chaotic yet steady, loud in motion, silent in purpose. From Earth, it looks serene. Through a backyard telescope, its bands drift slowly, hypnotically. But deep beneath those clouds is a pressure beyond comprehension. Hydrogen atoms squeezed until their electrons merge, forming metallic hydrogen, a phase of matter that doesn't exist naturally anywhere on Earth. That metallic layer turns the entire planet into a dynamo, spinning magnetic fields that reach millions of kilometers into space. This magnetosphere captures radiation, deflects charged particles, and shapes the environment even around nearby moons. Without it, Europa's icy crust might not harbour its hidden ocean. Io's volcanoes might erupt differently. The entire Jovian system would be a different story. Jupiter's influence extends beyond science. It reaches into metaphor, philosophy, the psychology of existence. It reminds us that power doesn't always shine. Sometimes it's the invisible pull that holds everything else together. We live in a culture that worships visibility, light, fame, spectacle. But the universe runs on gravity, on quiet persistence. Jupiter is the physical embodiment of that truth. It doesn't radiate much light, but everything around it orbits in acknowledgement of its unseen strength. When Voyager 1 and 2 flew past in 1979, humanity saw Jupiter up close for the first time. The images were shocking: bands, lightning, the colossal red vortex. But what stunned scientists most wasn't what they saw, it was what they realized they'd never feel. No land, no surface, no bottom. Jupiter isn't a place you can stand on, it's an abyss disguised as a planet. Descend into it and you'd fall forever through thicker and thicker air, crushed long before you reached anything solid. It's less a world than a gravitational idea made tangible. And yet, for all its inhospitality, it might still nurture life, though not on itself, but around it. Moons like Europa and Ganymede hold subsurface oceans warmed by Jupiter's tidal pull. Microbes might drift beneath their icy shells, nourished by chemical energy born from the dance of gravity. In that sense, Jupiter is not just a protector of life on Earth, but a potential cradle of life elsewhere. It guards, it shapes, it maybe even seeds. So when we ask, what if Jupiter disappeared tomorrow, we are really asking, what happens when the unseen guardian leaves? Because Jupiter is the reason the solar system has rhythm instead of chaos, order instead of entropy. It's the cosmic parent we rarely thank, the gravitational hand that steadies the cradle. Its silence is not emptiness, it's vigilance. And if someday, long after we're gone, another species somewhere points their telescope toward our star and sees the wide orbit of that giant, they'll know what we should have always known. That in the great celestial family, the loudest power is not light, but gravity. Not brilliance, but presence. Jupiter will still be there, turning slowly, wrapped in storms that never rest, the silent giant holding everything together. Before Jupiter became a guardian, it was a sculptor, and before it became a sculptor, it was chaos itself, condensing from dust and lightning into something that would decide the fates of worlds. 4.5 billion years ago, the solar system was not yet a system. It was a storm, a colossal whirlpool of gas, rock and frozen vapor spiraling around a newborn sun that still pulsed like a wounded ember. The early solar system was not a place of harmony. It was violent, unstable and young, filled with collisions so intense they could vaporize entire worlds in seconds. And in this celestial maelstrom something began to take shape, something that would one day bring order to this chaos. Jupiter. But Jupiter's true power was not just its size, it was its gravity, its invisible reach. Even before it fully formed, Jupiter's mass began bending the laws of motion around it. It pulled, it carved, it sculpted, and in doing so, it became the great architect of everything that followed. Imagine the early solar system as a symphony with no conductor. Every note clashing, every rhythm chaotic. There were hundreds of planetary embryos swirling around, competing to become something permanent. Some merged into larger worlds, others were thrown into the sun or ejected into interstellar space. Then came Jupiter, forming faster and heavier than anything else. It didn't just sit at the table. It flipped the table over and rearranged the entire room. With its growing mass, Jupiter's gravity began to organize the orbits of everything around it. It acted like a cosmic sculptor, using invisible hands to smooth, stretch, and shape the architecture of space. The result was the first whisper of structure. Planets began to find stable paths. Debris fields began to separate, the inner region forming rocky planets like Earth and Mars, and the outer regions gathering into gas and ice giants. But this wasn't peace. Jupiter's rise was not a gentle event, it was a kind of celestial domination. Its gravitational influence swept through the solar system like a tidal wave, changing destinies by pure force. Between Mars and Jupiter lies a graveyard, a ring of failed worlds, the asteroid belt. It's easy to imagine it as leftover crumbs of creation, but the truth is darker. That belt was meant to be a planet. A world that never was, because Jupiter wouldn't allow it. Every time small bodies tried to merge, Jupiter's gravity tore them apart. Its resonant pull disrupted their orbits, throwing them into chaotic dances of destruction. Instead of forming a planet, they shattered into billions of fragments, frozen in eternal limbo. So, in a way, the asteroid belt is Jupiter's fingerprint, the mark of its power, a reminder that creation and destruction are two sides of the same force. Jupiter's gravity carved that space into an invisible boundary line. Inside this orbit, small, rocky worlds. Beyond it, giants of gas and ice. Without Jupiter, that line might not exist. Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars might have been flung into unstable paths or collided long before they matured. Jupiter, by sheer gravitational presence, gave the inner worlds room to breathe. It wasn't just protecting them, it was defining them. Every planet moves in rhythm, not chaos. Their orbits follow resonances, gravitational harmonies that Jupiter conducts. If you could hear the solar system, you would hear music. Each planet a note, each orbit a beat, and Jupiter the deep drum keeping time. For example, when two planets orbit in exact integer ratios, say one planet makes 2 orbits for every one of another, they fall into resonance. These resonances aren't accidents, they are the architecture of stability. Jupiter creates them everywhere. It locks Saturn into a near-perfect 5-2 rhythm, 5 orbits of Jupiter for every 2 of Saturn. It sets up resonant gaps in the asteroid belt, known as Kirkwood gaps, where its gravity forbids matter from settling. Jupiter is not chaos, it is choreography, and every planet, every moon, every belt of debris moves to the dance it composes. Without this gravitational music, the solar system would quickly lose balance. Over millions of years, orbits would drift, collisions would multiply, and planets could be ejected entirely. Jupiter holds it together not by pulling harder, but by setting the rhythm. Yet even the greatest architect can stumble. Billions of years ago, Jupiter nearly destroyed everything it helped create. In its youth, Jupiter didn't stay still. It migrated, moving inward toward the Sun, pulled by the swirling disk of gas it helped organize. This slow spiral, known as the Grand Tack hypothesis, could have ended the story of life before it began. As Jupiter drifted inward, it scattered planetesimals and embryos like bowling pins. If it had gone too far, it might have smashed through the early Earth's orbit, or dragged material that would later form us into the Sun. But something remarkable happened. Saturn, forming just behind Jupiter, began its own inward migration. When the two giants locked into a gravitational resonance, their combined pull reversed direction. Together they turned around, tacking outward like a pair of cosmic sailors. This partnership between Jupiter and Saturn saved the inner planets. Without that delicate balance, there might never have been an Earth stable enough to harbour life. Jupiter almost destroyed us, then accidentally saved us. That's the paradox of its power. It's both destroyer and saviour, chaos and order, sculptor and shield. When we look at the solar system today, it feels natural, the planets neatly spaced, each in its lane. But this arrangement is not luck, it's architecture. Jupiter's gravity didn't just create the asteroid belt, it determined where planets could exist, how they move, and what they're made of. The inner worlds are small and rocky because Jupiter's early gravity kept the solar nebula's light gases away from the centre. The outer worlds became gas giants because Jupiter's bulk attracted hydrogen and helium like a magnet. Even the Kuiper belt, the icy frontier beyond Neptune, carries Jupiter's echo. Its resonances reach that far, shaping the orbits of Pluto and dozens of dwarf planets. Jupiter's influence doesn't end where its physical body does. It extends across billions of kilometers, threading through every orbit, every resonance, every gravitational whisper. It is, in essence, the solar system's invisible skeleton, the framework that holds the dance of planets together. Every orbit in the solar system is a story, a memory written in motion, and many of those stories trace back to Jupiter. Mercury's eccentric spin, Mars's thin atmosphere, even the tilt of Earth's axis, all of them have been shaped subtly or dramatically by Jupiter's gravitational tug over eons. It has stolen comets, redirected asteroids, and twisted the paths of moons. Some of the most beautiful phenomena in the night sky, comet trails, meteor showers, captured moons, are byproducts of Jupiter's interference, and yet we rarely think of it, because Jupiter doesn't ask to be seen, it asks to be felt. Every night we look up at the stars. Our very safety as a species depends on the invisible math Jupiter maintains. It keeps the cosmic rhythm steady enough for us to build cities, plant trees, and dream. It is the unseen hand behind the quiet regularity of sunrise. To imagine the solar system without Jupiter is to imagine a house with no foundation. Everything might stand for a while, but slowly, inevitably, cracks would form. Without Jupiter's early presence, the asteroid belt might have become another planet, perhaps one that destabilized the orbits of Mars or Earth. Without Jupiter's gravitational rhythms, Saturn and Uranus might wander into chaotic orbits, destabilizing everything inward. Without Jupiter's barrier, comets from the outer reaches would rain upon the inner worlds like cosmic arrows. Jupiter doesn't just shape the solar system, it sustains it. Every stable orbit, every calm year on Earth, every season that comes and goes exists because Jupiter's gravity whispers in the background, holding the structure intact. It is not loud, it is not visible, but it is always there. The great architect maintaining equilibrium across billions of kilometers. In the quiet precision of Jupiter's design lies something poetic, a reflection of how stability is born not from control, but from balance. The same way our hearts depend on unseen rhythms, the solar system depends on Jupiter's.